Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and today we welcome our guest host, Joe Newby from conservativefiringline.com for the Joe Newby Hour, heard here this day, the first Monday of every month at this hour, 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time, for the Joe Newby Hour. Joe, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Eric. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, my friend. Joe is a 10-year veteran of the Marine Corps. He ran for city council position in Riverside, California in 1991 and managed successful campaigns for Idaho state legislator. He's the co-author of Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. Joe wrote for Examiner.com from 2010 until closed in 2016. His work has been published at Newsbusters, Spokane, Faith and Values, and other sites. He now runs the Conservative Firing Line, which is the top of the food chain in the blogosphere.
Thank you. You're too kind.
There's a lot going on. You've got quite a few lead stories up on conservativefiringline.com surrounding Robert Mueller and this investigation that's going on. The addition of Ken Starr to the team that was the lead prosecuting attorney on the Whitewater that turned into the Monica Lewinsky debacle with under Bill Clinton. And so this deck is stacked. They're trying the grand jury case in Washington, D.C., which is number 50. Of the 50 states, it's number 1 in Democratic voting, and the largest anti-Trump population center of the world.
Pretty much. And we're not just talking voters. You have 535 critters in Congress, and a lot of them are never Trumpers, and some of those are even Republicans. Here's my take on the whole Ken Starr hiring. Eric, you got to remember, I'm sure you do, as I do. I remember watching this day by day on Fox News back in the day, and hearing Rush Limbaugh comment on it. You remember Ken Starr? The left hated Ken Starr. They hated his guts. You had James Carville out there, making these wild-eyed claims about, Rush Limbaugh was talking about this, Ken Starr out there handing out cigarettes to little kids, junk like this. It was absolutely insane. And now that he's on this, of course, the left loves it. Of course, then again, you got to remember, the left loved, James Comey until he got fired, and then, or they hated him rather, until he got fired, and then they loved him. And I mean, it's hard to keep track of, who's on first anymore. But yeah, this whole thing with Robert Mueller, I am very concerned for a number of reasons. Number one, the direction that he's going, I'm very concerned with, because, of course, when he impaneled these grand juries, this whole thing, Eric, went from being a counter-intel probe to being a criminal probe. And to my knowledge, now correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand, and I'm no attorney, but as I understand the special prosecutor statute, there has to be an underlying crime, or there has to be an underlying crime alleged. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been one. In fact, we've had everybody from Robert Mueller, even Maxine Waters, who's so obsessed with, Donald Trump and Russia that she comes up with a new conspiracy theory almost every other day. Even she admits there's no evidence of any collusion, of anything of the sort. Now, there may be evidence that Russia may have tried to influence the election. Well, of course, that's what they do. And I remember back in the day, Democrats were actively going to the Soviet Union to seek the help of the KGB to take out Ronald Reagan. And they were, doing it right out in the open. Now all of a sudden they hate Russia. They hate Donald Trump. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. And I'm convinced, as are many others, Eric, that this is all part of what has been called a silent coup. I think it's not quite so silent anymore.
Well, it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Every prosecutor on the team is a Hillary Clinton donor.
Right.
Robert Mueller is James Comey's best friend.
Yeah.
Mueller was the head of the FBI when he was replaced by Comey. So they have bonded. They are incredibly close, and that's a cause for recusal.
Well, and not only that, but we have Comey admitting in testimony that he asked to have stuff leaked by one of his friends in order to ensure the appointment of a special counsel.
The whole thing is just preposterous.
This thing reeks to high heaven, Eric. It really does. And one of the things that concern me, and I've heard other people say this, is that this is nothing more than a way to cheat some 62, 63 million Americans of their vote last November. That's all this is. You know, it's revenge for Donald Trump having the audacity to beat the establishment, to beat Hillary Clinton, to beat the establishment Republicans, and go on to win the White House. And they have been engaged in a coup d'etat since the day he won. Early on, it was, we saw the violent protests, we saw multiple threats and efforts to, calls to murder this president, which, by the way, let me remind your audience, I personally contacted Maxine Waters' Washington, D.C. office. I spoke to one of her staffers, her communication director, and I asked him flat out, does Maxine Waters condemn the calls and threats to murder Donald Trump? Does she condemn the threats and the violence against Donald Trump's supporters? You know what? That was back in March, Eric. You know what? I have heard nothing from her office. Nothing. So, hey, I'm a believer, Eric, in the old saw that silence equals consent. So I have to ask myself, hey, does Maxine Waters want Donald Trump murdered? I mean, I know that's going out there a bit, but her silence on that issue and the statements that she has made, quite frankly, Eric, concerns me. I can't help but think that maybe there's a part of her that wants something other than, something more than Donald Trump impeached. And just last week, Eric, we heard her say that once we get Donald Trump, we're going after Mike Pence.
The whole thing is so diabolical. The question then becomes is to what extent is the intelligence community rallied against Donald Trump, and as it reached into the ranks of ex-military, snipers, CIA operatives, FBI who handled domestic issues. Is there somebody who is a zealot that would allow themselves to get caught up in the whirlwind that they were saving America from their plight by being involved in an assassination attempt?
Well, let's put it this way, Eric. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that you had a crazy Bernie Sanders supporter who actually tried to murder Republicans, elected Republican congressmen, as they were practicing for a baseball game. It has me very much concerned, because one of the biggest concerns I have right now, Eric, is this: if the deep state, and by this I'm talking about the Obama holdovers in the White House, I'm talking about Republicans like Lindsey Graham in the Senate and John McCain, if these people can, or if they fail to take Donald Trump out by impeachment, what other way will they try to take him out? We know that their goal is ultimately to take him out of office. And I've said it before on my blog, Eric, I'm concerned that these people will not be happy until Donald Trump's dead body is pulled out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and dumped in the street. And God help us if that happens. I hope and pray it doesn't. I pray for this president's safety. But what concerns me, even if he's just impeached, what what will be the outcome of that? And
Well,
just as
so the same fate that befell Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was impeached, but then subsequently acquitted of the charges by the Senate.
right,
So let's say this goes on for a while, and could it last until November of 2018?
I don't think so. I think something will have to happen between now and then. They will either have to try to make a move to actually take him out, one way or the other, or the Senate, all these efforts will eventually implode. If they're successful, this is my concern. If they're successful, what will happen to the country? Because that will put us in a constitutional crisis, Eric, the likes of which I don't think we've seen since, well, 1865, quite frankly. And there have been people who have said, hey, be careful, because if this happens, if the Democrats succeed in getting him out, and I contend it's not just the Democrats, I contend it's the media, I contend it's certain people in the Republican Party. If they succeed, we are going to see civil unrest in this country, the likes of which we haven't seen in over 150 years. And I'm not the only one who believes that.
Well, that's right. Your feelings are shared by such well-known people as Michael Savage,
Right.
James Wood, and then quite stunningly, Craig Sawyer, a former Navy SEAL, which is something being exclusively covered by you
At
there
this point,
at
yes.
Conservative Firing Line, that he published Friday warning of a gruesome massacre if President Trump is removed from office. You know, the
Yeah.
first time I heard something about a possible civil war was a couple of weeks ago on Tucker Carlson's show when he had the Cal Brexit guy,
Yeah.
the Cal Exit, the guy on who said that, and it was Tucker Carlson that brought it up. He said, you may want to leave the United States, but what if the United States does not want you to leave, doesn't release you?
Well, and moreover, Eric, there's federal law that says that you can't just get up and leave the union, and that happened after the Civil War. It used to be, prior to the Civil War, you had states, well, like Texas, prime example. Texas was its own republic for 12 years before
Right.
it joined the Union, and then it was in the Union for a short period of time, and then it left the Union and joined the Confederacy. After the Civil War, however, there were Supreme Court decisions that said you can't do this anymore. So this is pretty much established law. If California votes to leave the Union, guess what? The federal government has within its rights to go in militarily if necessary to set things straight. So, they can vote all they want, but it's not legal. We have a different situation here, though, Eric.
Right.
In 1860, 1861, you had a whole different dynamic. You had the northern states versus the southern states. The northern states were essentially just ruling over the southern states with, through their votes in the Senate. The southern states felt like they had no representation whatsoever in Congress. It was a whole different dynamic than what you have happening now. Now what you have is red versus blue. And so it's not just north versus south, east
Right.
versus west, or anything of that sort. You've got, Trump land, if you will, all those red counties that voted for Donald Trump versus a smattering of blue counties here and there, on the east and west coast and a few places in between. I think, New Mexico, a few counties in Texas and some other places, Southern California, New York. It's a whole different dynamic. You're talking about individual on individual. And the kind of thing that we're seeing in places like Berkeley, for example, New York City, New York University, when the speakers go there to talk to the students. and you see the Antifa crowds come out and shut it down. It's going to be that level of violence. My concern, however, is going to be that it's going to be nationwide, and it's going to be a whole lot more violent than what we've seen so far. That's my big concern. I hope and pray it never happens. But that is my big concern.
If we look at the demographic of the Republican Party today, and we're talking about predominantly, by the numbers, blue-collar workers that probably all have served in some capacity in the military. That they got out of high school, maybe went on to the military, then they got an education or a skill, vocational training that they got out of the military and then went into the workforce. And that's a group that, you've got the Democratic Party with Hollywood elitists, with academics, people that aren't born to fight, versus the factory worker, the family man that's going to protect his family and country. But here's the problem, Joe, is that this is violating the sacred foundation of the Constitution. That this Congress is responsible for ensuring the domestic tranquility. And they have been so focused, this Democratic group and a couple of 3 Republican senators who have joined in with this, that they are disrupting the domestic tranquility. This violates constitutionally 2 incredibly important parts. Provide for the common defense. This is not common, this is uncommon. They are the minority voice in America today. They're a minority voice in the Senate. They're a minority voice in the House. And they're the minority voice in the White House. Therefore, the majority has said we want to ensure the domestic tranquility and provide for the common defense. And these Democrats that are lobbying for the coup, for the ousting of Donald Trump, are traitors, according to the Constitution.
Here's another thing. Every single one of these critters, both Democrats and Republicans, every last one of them took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. I took that oath.
Against all enemies, foreign or domestic.
Foreign and domestic. All right? I took that oath multiple times in my 10 years of service. That's not an oath that you just give up because you're no longer on active duty. That's my opinion. So what happens? What should I do? Well, every legal means, you can redress a government, vote the critters out, and vote in people who are going to do the job.
Right.
My big concern, is that there are going to be people who are going to take up arms. And that is a big problem. What happens then? Then you have, the legal authorities have a choice. They have to make a choice. What choice do they make? What choice will they make? What happens if they succeed in removing Donald Trump? And let's just think outside the box for a minute, Eric, because you and I both know that these people have much more, other targets, not just Donald Trump, but Mike Pence as well. Under the Constitution, Mike Pence would become the president. Well, the left doesn't want Mike Pence to become president. The left wants Hillary Clinton. Because the left thinks Hillary Clinton really won. And a lot of these people who are clamoring for Donald Trump to be taken out, I would suspect, probably believe that if Donald Trump is taken out, that Hillary Clinton would take over. Well, what happens if these same Republicans who are trying to usurp the president now, what if they decide, well, you know what, we don't like this whole idea of succession, maybe we ought to reach out, and I can hear them saying this too, Eric, maybe we ought to reach out to our friends on the other side, and let's see if we can come together with a consensus. Maybe a co-presidency with Hillary Clinton and someone that we like, maybe maybe someone like Evan McMullen. I can honestly hear them saying this in my mind, and it frightens me to no end, because we have become a nation that is so dumbed down, Eric, because of our education system, because the people who are in power, the Republicans who are in power, in my view, have done a lousy job of educating the voters and explaining to them, the issues in all this. Where does it go from there?
Is it rational or logical to believe that if you have a ticket with Trump and Pence, that as many times as they had to meet and strategize during the campaign, that none of this investigation is focused on Mike Pence? None of it. He's not implicated in any possible way. They're not even questioning whether he had knowledge of that. See, I would think that you would want to subpoena him to say, did you have any observation of any collusion with Russia? Did you get caught in a crossfire of some kind? Did you ever hear anything? But his name has not come up in this investigation. It's so laser focused on Donald Trump and his family that it's so prejudicial. It's so skewed to finding the problem. First of all, Donald Trump Jr. is not even a part of the administration.
That's right.
So why are you going to a private citizen in a Robert Mueller investigation of Russian collusion in the election? Why are you even examining the son of the president for something that had nothing to do with this whatsoever? Okay.
Well, it's a witch hunt. That's because, and this is just me thinking outside the box, Eric. I'm up here in North Idaho. Okay, I don't live in the Beltway. I look and I see what's happening in the Beltway, and I read what's going on, and I put two and two together in my own mind, and I come up with my own conclusions. Okay.
Right.
And here's what I'm coming up with. I don't believe that they have a scintilla of evidence against Donald Trump whatsoever. You know it, I know it, the American people know it, the president knows it, and I think to a degree, I think even Robert Mueller knows it. I really do. Maxine Waters has admitted that there's no evidence. Adam Schiff, all of these people have come out at one point or another, one time or another, and they've said, no, we don't have any evidence. But it's the old excuse of, well, there's no evidence, so because of that, then yeah, we need to investigate. So at this point, it's not an investigation of an actual or even an alleged crime that's taken place. It's not like Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. It's not even like Watergate.
Right.
This is a witch hunt to come up with opposition research that will end up getting handed over to the Democrat Party. That's all this is. If they can't take him out with this, if they fail to take him out in any other way, Eric, guess what? Everything Mueller comes up with. Why do you think they're going after business ties and business dealings, things that have absolutely nothing to do with this election or any allegations of collusion whatsoever? They're going after the family. They're going after the family's finances. All of this is nothing more than a witch hunt to provide information for the Democrat Party in 2020, assuming, of course, that Donald Trump survives until 2020.
Right. But investors in America aren't responding like this is a pending civil war. I mean, they're feeding that stock market, that New York Stock Exchange, with the Dow hitting record after record after record after record, with optimism, jobs coming back to America.
Absolutely.
Defense spending is going to be up in America. Manufacturing is coming back to America. All these are innovations of Donald Trump's message that said, make America great again. And
that's right.
You don't have to like the man. There's a lot of presidents I didn't like. Ronald Reagan, when you watch California, you have kind of a jaundiced eye a little bit to things that come out of California. You almost want to picture that having friends in Hawaii taking a tow rope across They got a big winch, and they take a tow rope all the way across and plant it in Sacramento. And then they start all cranking. They take it all. They've got a big line, and they're just cranking. They're hoping that it's going to break off and park it somewhere between Hawaii and Nevada.
Yeah,
somewhere out in the water as an island, because they do act like an island. They
do.
I lived in Los Angeles for 7 years, and there was nothing like it. I can't even compare it to anything. It's like living at the bottom of a blender.
It is different. I was stationed out there for many years, met my wife out there, got married out there, and my wife and I lived out there for several years after I got out of the service. And it's a whole different planet, especially for an old country boy like myself. I grew up in north central Texas as a young man, and we heard all these wonderful things about California growing up, and then I got stationed out there. When I first got stationed, I thought, oh, hey, this ought to be fun. No, it was okay. Don't get me wrong. There are some very good people out there in California. I've made a lot of good friends out there, met a lot of good people. But you're right. It's totally different, and it's changed an awful lot. Now, you have to wonder, Eric, about a state that keeps reelecting someone like Jerry Brown to the state house. I mean, this was a state that elected Pete Wilson, for crying out loud. This is a state that actually elected Ronald Reagan, to be governor.
Right. Bonzo goes to Washington.
Yeah. What happened?
It's wild. We're talking with Joe Newby for the Joe Newby Hour, heard here on Revealing the Truth the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Joe is the co-author of the book Banned, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. You can find that and all the other books that we interview here on Revealing the Truth at the unitingnation.com website, IANBN.com. Click on Books and Media and find Joe Newby's book Banned by World Ahead Press, a WND company. When we come back on the other side, we're going to drill more into this looming possibility of civil war in America should Robert Mueller and the Democratic Party get their way and oust Donald Trump. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The Teaching Archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our one-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're visiting with Joe Newby, our special guest host for this hour every month on the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time for the Joe Newby Hour. Joe, welcome back to the program.
Well, good to be here, Eric. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Still enamored with your book, Banned, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. I just saw today that they're scrubbing anti-Islamic posts from Facebook. They continue down this path of political correctness. And I just saw where Mark Zuckerberg has hired an entire team of publicity folks that actually are involved in campaign strategies, as if he's going to make a run for the presidency in 2020. He's well financed. He has over 1 billion friends.
Well, and he runs the largest digital online empire in the world right now.
So is the country ready for their first Jewish president?
Absolutely. I have no problem with the Jewish president.
Well, I know, but the country.
I worship a Jewish carpenter, okay? So
course.
I have no problem.
Of course.
I have no problem with the Jewish president. But here's the thing. Here's the thing with Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg has been making these trips around the country, supposedly to speak with the average individual.
Right.
And Zuckerberg is a very intelligent person. I mean, he taught himself Cantonese, for crying out loud. So he's a very intelligent guy. He's got initiatives that he's working on. Him and his wife are working on. I recently read that they are looking to give up, or maybe have already given up, something like 95% of their, $14 billion or whatever it is that they have, 45 or however much it is. But, even at that, he still has more money in the bank than you and I and, will ever see combined in our entire lives. So yeah, so there has been some speculation. He made a trip to Iowa. He's hired in some publicity folks who were tied to the Hillary Clinton campaign and some other Democrat campaigns. And so naturally, there's been speculation that he may be eyeing a 2020 run. He, of course, has kind of sort of denied that. But, you know, I don't know. Could we see another billionaire in the White House? Yeah. Do I want it to be that particular billionaire? No. You know, I don't want him doing to the United States what, you know, he's done online. Now, I will give him credit. And I believe I do in my book as well. I do give him credit for creating a very powerful online presence and creating a very powerful tool for getting information out. The issues that I have, however, are with things like, you know, saying, you know, claiming a commitment to free speech on the one hand, while the other hand, in the form of moderators and what have you, in the background are doing other things. So I have some concerns there. That's number one. The other thing that I have you know, a concern with is well, some of the statements that he's made. Okay, let's take a look at policy positions. He's an open borders guy. Okay,
right.
He has come and publicly said that the United States should adopt the same immigration policies as Germany, Angela Merkel's Germany, with regard to immigration from these Middle Eastern countries. Which essentially, I mean, you take a look at Germany. Not only are they being flooded with these migrants, these 26-year-old and so on, these military-age men that we're told are widows and orphans and children, you know, and you know, not just Germany, but all of Europe is being flooded with people. And what are they doing? They're coming in. They're you know, we've got account after account after account of sexual assault, murder, you know, on and on it goes. And the people who complain or who criticize this immigration are the ones who are being picked up by the police, for crying out loud, you know. And so Mark Zuckerberg says, well, we need to adopt their immigration policies. I'm sorry, but no. Okay, this is a guy who promised Merkel that he would do everything he could, or that he was working on ways to squelch posts that were critical of migrants.
Right.
His executives have just recently agreed with the government of Pakistan to, you know, police what they consider to be quote unquote hate. And if you look on their website, they have a blog there. Well, yeah, sometimes we get it wrong. Gee, you think? Yeah. You know, how do you determine what's hate? Well, look, you know, as Adina and I advise in our book, you know, we have a whole chapter where we give people advice on how they can mitigate some of this kind of damage. And a lot of it has to do with what individuals post. And I know people who, and I see them, a few here and there,
right,
who post things online that frankly go over the top. I refuse to do that. You know, it's one thing to be critical of a policy. It's one thing to report on an event when it happens, but it's another to go out with a stick and start beating the beehive.
Right.
You know, if you do that often enough, you're going to get stung. So that's one of the things that I encourage people. Hey, you know, if you disagree with the policy, go for it. You know, if you disagree with a piece of theology, whatever that may be, you know, it's one thing to discuss that. It's one thing to debate it, you know, in a civilized manner. But it's another to go out with posts and say, you know, kill all this or kill all that, or, you know, anything like that, knowing darn good and well that Facebook is going to come along and pull your post down. The problem, however, is when people like myself, last November, I got banned for 30 days over a picture of an eagle superimposed on a U.S. flag. Facebook said that violated their conditions, their community standards. It took multiple appeals and 20 days to get that ban overturned. And yet, you see, Islamists putting out, posts, kill the infidels kind of thing,
right.
and nothing happens. Nothing at all happens. So yeah, there does appear to be, at least in my view, a double standard. Here, not too long ago, there was a Facebook page that supports veterans with PTSD, and the page was deleted. It was yanked by Facebook. The administrators reached out to me. We did a post on it. I reached out to Facebook, and to my surprise, and my pleasant surprise, to be honest, they responded back to me and they said, "Yep, we're on this. We're taking care of it." And sure enough, they did. They put the page back up. But this is the kind of thing that we see over and over and over again. And it's not just Facebook, Eric. It's spread to Twitter. It's spread to YouTube. You hear YouTubers like Mark Dice and a good friend of mine, Josh Bernstein, who have had to go to Patreon and get their material monetized there because YouTube, for whatever reason, won't allow them to monetize their material. And
it's interesting that when I do a feature story on a Muslim who comes to faith or stories on jihad throughout the world, the only thing they do to me, because of media, and I mean they shouldn't do it to you either because you're just going to publicize it on the web, but I really don't know why. They just don't let me boost it.
Yeah.
They let me post it, but they won't let me boost it. So I'm very thankful for the 144,000 followers we have on Facebook and the 260,000 we have on Twitter that give us the forum to be able to get the word out just to them and encourage them to share it, which is free.
Exactly. And here's the thing, people have this misunderstanding that, well, they can do this because they're private companies and they can do whatever they want. It's odd though, Eric, I never hear people who say this, I never hear them make that argument when it comes time to defend, say, a baker who doesn't want to make a cake for, a gay or lesbian wedding. Then it's, no, we got to run you out of business. We need to burn your business down. We need to put you out of business, hit you up with all kinds of fines and this and that and the other. How dare you? What? You think because you're a Christian you have rights in this country? What? Who are you?
I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that post about the butcher shop that was being tormented by animal cruelty group, and so they finally had to post on their butcher shop that animals lost their lives and that they didn't practice cruelty, that they made sure that these were painless.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, the same people who do that have absolutely no problem with abortion.
Right.
Right. So, but the problem is, though, Eric, and Dean and I put this in our book, is federal law sanctions every single bit of this. It's not a First Amendment issue per se, but it is a free speech issue.
Right.
Okay. But federal law, and in the form of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996, is what permits this kind of censorship to take place. And until that law is amended, this is only going to get worse. So again, we get back to elections. This is why elections matter.
As you're saying that, I'm realizing that there has not been a piece of legislation to come out of this last session of Congress.
No.
Of any substance whatsoever.
No, none whatsoever. Well, they promised for years they were going to repeal Obamacare. The House did. Sure. The House passed a bill to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Right.
The Senate said, no, we don't like it. We're going to do our own thing. And so they couldn't do that. So then they came up with a straight repeal. Oh, they couldn't do that. And, the same characters keep popping up. John McCain, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, blah,
Okay,
blah, blah, blah.
If you have a brain tumor, and one interview he did, he made the statement that I checked the wrong box, and I thought it was, and he gave some justification, and he said, I've made a terrible mistake. But every other interview is, he doesn't understand border problems, he doesn't understand immigration. My state, we have experience in this, we're a border state,
Right.
and my state would be impacted negatively if we repealed
Right.
Obamacare, so I have to look out for my state. This man's been diagnosed, he came out of surgery with a
Right.
diagnosis of brain cancer.
Right.
And he's now left Washington to go back home.
Right.
We know that there's enmity between him and Donald Trump for Donald Trump's comments
yeah.
that a POW getting caught doesn't make you a hero.
No, absolutely not. Here's the thing, though, Eric, and this is why voters at a bird's weighing in.
He's got a strong opinion.
Hey, he does. This is why primaries matter so much, Eric. We had a wonderful person running against John McCain. This isn't the first time John McCain's done this kind of stuff.
Right.
We had a wonderful person running against John McCain in the form of Dr. Kelly Ward. And she lost because of John McCain's war chest. Well, Kelly Ward's now running against another Republican in name only. She's going to be running against Jeff Flake. And we need to get her elected. The folks in Arizona need to elect her in order to maybe help right some of these kinds of issues. We have a fellow up here in Idaho where I live, Raul Labrador, as you probably know, is going to be running to be the next governor of Idaho. He's a wonderful man. He's done a great job for the 1st District up here, but he's been there for 8 years, and he's decided he wants to be governor of Idaho. So we're going to have an open seat. Well, we've got, last time I looked, 3 Republicans that are running for that seat. I had the pleasure of meeting one of them and interviewing him, and I'm proud to say he's contributing to the conservative firing line now. A fellow by the name of Michael Snyder. He's written 4 books of his own. He's quite a prolific writer. He's a good guy. In fact, one of his planks are get rid of the rhinos. And so I said, hey, I like this guy.
Do you think that some of the issues, when the campaign was going on and they adopted Ronald Reagan's slogan, "Drain the Swamp,"
Mm-hmm.
do you think that because he didn't put together an effective team to start out with that could focus on draining the swamp and really getting rid of this deep state that seems to be the holdovers from Obama and come up with a strategy to get that thing done early on in his administration? Do you think that's coming back to visit him?
I think to a certain degree, yes, but even with that, a lot of this, I'd have to say 90% of this, is due to the fact that you've got a do-nothing Senate that refuses to approve all of his cabinet appointments, all of his, not just cabinet positions,
right,
but all the undersecretaries and all this and that and the other. Well, somebody's got to fill those positions, so he's stuck with having to use people who are already there, who, by the way, hate his guts, who, by the way, are holdovers from the previous administration, and are now in open rebellion against the administration. Hey, you remember this leaker, what was her name, Reality Winner? She was a contractor,
right,
I believe, for the NSC. Well, guess what? She's right there. She had that security clearance. She was right there. How many more like her are there? Donald Trump, in my view, should have gone in, just clean house, said goodbye, already had people picked to go in and take
right. But he doesn't need
place.
the Senate approval to terminate employment.
No, he doesn't, but it is not easy to get rid of a government employee. It really isn't. Short of breaking the law, it really isn't. Now, political appointees, yeah, he can get rid of political employees, but contractors.
But aren't they the holdovers?
Some. Some are, but there's a lot of actual government employees and contractors who aren't. They're not political appointees, so they are harder to get rid of than most people realize.
But they were hired by political appointees, so doesn't that trickle down economics?
That doesn't. It'd be nice if it worked that way. Let me tell you. I wish it did.
All right,
my bird.
We've got about 4 minutes left in this segment. Let's talk a little bit about Jeff Sessions and whether or not this message from Donald Trump about prosecuting, getting together a special prosecutor for the Clinton situation, that he hadn't acted upon that he hadn't acted upon stopping these leaks, that he was ineffective as an attorney general. Is that still stemming back to him not consulting the president before he recused himself from the Russia probe?
Well, I have to think yes, and part of me says yes, part of me says no. Here's the thing. I think Jeff Sessions was being perfectly honest when he answered that question to the Senate, because he answered the question that was asked of him. And the question that was asked of him had to do with, dealing with the campaign. Well, Sessions answered that honestly. But did he ever meet? Well, yeah, he met with him, but, when you're in that position, he's probably met with ambassadors from who knows how many countries.
Right.
How could he possibly remember them all? And then we find out that he's not the only one who met with this ambassador. There were about 30 Democrats who also met with the same ambassador. Why aren't they being shown the door?
Right.
So there's some hypocrisy there. This is, and the other thing too, Eric, is you got to understand, there's a lot of animosity. The hardcore left, Kamala Harris's and the Al Frankens, they don't like Sessions anyway. They think he's a racist and a bigot. Of course, they think everybody who doesn't goose step like them is a racist and a bigot anyway. So so they don't like him anyway.
Well, because we're in the South.
Well, yeah, exactly. And or you're a white guy, or you're a Republican. That's all it takes. Jeff Sessions, I think, is a very good man. I think he could probably have gotten by without recusing himself. I understand why he did it. Maybe he shouldn't have, But the thing is that now, because he did recuse himself, now they're tying everything to Russia, and they're essentially trying to neuter his job, his entire job description. They're trying to make it impossible for him to do what he needs to do as Attorney General. So I think, going after these leakers, we talked about, during the break, there have been more leaks now in the last 6 months, and I think there's been the last, 2 years of the Obama administration. These leaks are getting out of hand, and what's worse is you have people like Maxine Waters, who just this weekend, Eric, just here in the last few days, I think it was Friday, she was on The View, and she was perfectly fine. She wanted to see more of these leaks. It's kind of like, yeah, so what if it hurts national security? If it hurts Trump, that's all that matters. So she wants to see more of these leaks coming out. Forget national security, forget, all of these kinds of things. No, she just wants to hurt Donald Trump, even if it hurts the country.
Do they not understand that in another country, you would face a firing squad for these kind of offenses? That you would, in the middle of the night, you would be swooped out of your bed, you'd be taken to some remote location, you'd be lined up against a wall, and you would be executed for treason.
I don't
Yet
think
this
they
is
care.
so cavalier an attitude towards national security that when their home would be bombed by Iran or North Korea, they're going to be the first ones to be screaming about national security and protecting our airspace. Well, this is the president that was committed to national security and protecting our borders. Why, until it hits your home, you have to then...
I don't think they care, Eric. And I'll go you one step further. These people are so ideologically blinded by their hatred of this president and by their own hatred of the rule of law. Look at what they did in their own primary. They rigged their own primary against Bernie Sanders, okay? They are so blinded, ideologically blinded by hate that they don't care. Rush Limbaugh said something here the other day that I thought was terrific. He was talking about, Jim Acosta's, reaction, the media's reaction to this legal immigration bill that Stephen Miller was trying to brief him on. He said these people are stupid, okay? And I don't like using that term, but it makes sense. I mean, when you've got Jim Acosta and Democrats out there citing a poem on the Statue of Liberty as though that somehow trumps the Constitution and trumps federal law.
Okay, if they can't read English, if they can't speak English, they can't read the sign.
Exactly.
Joe, we are out of time, but it's always great to talk to you. It's always lively and very enjoyable to have somebody I can run these crazy ideas about Washington by. And we just so appreciate the Joe Newby Hour every month here on the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock Central Time. Joe Newby, author of Banned, How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad. You can find that right at our website at ignitingnation.com, or go to the WND Superstore. And when you check out, put in the code IAN in the box, and we'll get some gifts from WMD for steering you in their direction. And I know you want to support Igniting a Nation's ministry and this program, Revealing the Truth. So you can visit our website at ignitingnation.com or our Facebook page or Twitter feed and click on the donate button, because we're fully 100% supported. We have no sponsors or advertisers by your generous gifts. So you can look for the address, and you can also look for the PayPal and make your donation today. We're going to bring to a close our live broadcast day. We thank Joe Newby for being with us from conservativefiringline.com. You can follow him at Conservative Firing Line on Facebook and Twitter, and join together the ranks of almost 100,000 people that stand with them in the work they're doing. We'll be back here. Thank you, Joe.